All right,
Great.
so Susan, we're ready to get started. So I'll turn it over to you and we can walk through the agenda.
Great. So this is the Connecticut State Advisory Council for Special Education Executive Committee meeting, and it is Tuesday, October 18th at 12:37 p.m. And is there anybody on for public comment?
No one on for
No?
public comment.
Wonderful. Okay, then let's just do the first order of business would be SAC priorities.
Excellent. So I have a few different documents that I can pull up and share with you all, but during our last full session, we had a really nice large group activity where folks were contributing their thoughts and ideas around the priority areas. So I thought today, as an executive committee, you all could kind of finalize those topic areas and then discuss to see if there's any additional steps that need to be taken before we, make those final priority areas public, if you will, or to communicate those back out to the full council.
Okay.
So I can definitely share my screen to kind of reorient you all if you'd like me to do that. Whoops. Let me unshare before I just trying to pull up the document that I need. I apologize for the multiple screens open.
That's okay.
Let's see, full draft. Here we go, breakout templates. Let's try that again. Okay, is that coming through okay, Susan?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right. So the first area that was established over the summer orientation for SAC members, and then the training was the issue of special education or related service staffing vacancies, and so there was some discussions about what are the assumptions around that data that we need, the constituents that care about the issue. And I know, although there's not a lot written from our last meeting, we had this priority area pretty well established. The second one is around least restrictive environment. And so how that was playing in our conversations were around environmental decisions that are being made by planning and placement team that come about with either communication challenges and or behavior disciplinary actions and activities that happen in the school, and assuring that the processes in place for planning placement teams like manifestation determinations are being held with fidelity when those types of decisions are being made. There was also a discussion about previous PJ settlement and how that plays in and impacts in previous trainings and structures that we do have in place. And that goal of 80% or more of time with non-disabled peers is a particular area of interest that came out in our state performance plan as well, in the stakeholder activities that we engaged in there. So we have staffing shortages, 1, least restrictive environment, 2, and then student voice, which has always been particularly an interest area and of emphasis for our group. We have an amazing student, couple of different programs that provide opportunities for student advocacy and training in self-determination and transition from grade 6 all the way through adulthood and even beyond into for young adults age 26. And I know we have students as members of our advisory council as well, and both CPAC and the transition network, as well as CERC, supporting those areas. So the student voice in education, and this too lends to some of your previous discussions around dispute resolution and the power of student-led planning and placement team meetings. So that can definitely turn into recommendations and advice for the annual report, which is due in January. And then finally, a large issue is around social emotional learning and mental health needs. That's not something that has changed, but only been exacerbated over the last couple of years with the pandemic related issues and how those impacts are still being felt by educators, families, and of course our students. So having said that, we probably want to narrow down and hone in on that a bit and how that interacts with special education specifically in our recommendations, again, for the legislature and the departments. And then finally, the last section that we have is around employment opportunities and just weaving in some of those previous transition related priorities that you've had in the past. So I'll stop sharing at this point, open it back up, and then I can kind of reinforce and review those 5 topics. But the question for the executive committee today is, and I think my recommendation would be, it seems like those major categories of the priorities are pretty well set, especially given the opportunities that the committees had over the summer and then our first meeting this year to contribute or to add to that if needed. And then the second part of what we need to determine is how we're going to weave that into the annual report as far as recommendations go. And, you know, Sean and I have a couple of ideas on how we can do that during the next meeting.
This is Susan. I just had a quick question. At the back to school meeting, there was just there was a mention made that there's going to be changes with 504 were coming, and I didn't know what that meant. And if that is,
I'm not sure I know what that means either.
I don't either. They just said, and there'll be someone mentioned and there'll be changes with 504, and I was like, I don't know what they're talking about.
So section 504 is, I mean, we as a state this year for the first time are incorporating section 504 process in our CTSED system. So that's new. And also, I do know that the Office of Civil Rights at the federal level have their statutes and regulations up for public comment right now.
Okay.
Which traditionally or historically means that there may be some changes coming down the road. So that could be something that you heard, Susan, kind of in some of our messaging. We don't have any specific changes that either we have the authority to do or the ability to do at the state level. Having said that, CTSEDS does produce Section 504 plans, so we'll have a greater access to data moving forward from July 1 on than we've had in the past, which is a positive.
Great, thank you. Because I was just wondering about that.
Yeah.
Because I heard that and I said, oh, are they reworking it? I thought maybe that 504 plans were now going to be reworked, just similar as you know.
Yeah, it's different. The districts are, you know, there's a lot of change that they're undertaking with this initiative, and Section 504 plans another area of change for them now that there's a standardized form in the system across all districts. That's certainly a change that everyone's, you know, getting used to and processing.
Okay,
so
wonderful. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. But I just want to commend the group. I mean, I think you all did a great job of kind of narrowing down the topics, again, over orientation, as well as the first meeting. We can polish this up a little bit, if you will, and you know, share it back out in a little more of a definitive way, remove all of the notes out and just say, you know, here's the finalized priority areas for our next annual cycle. And then start to, in the next meetings, build out a bit some of the recommendations around there. And then the thing that's always important, and it's hard to get kind of live on the spot, but future presentations or future data that the council needs to be able to make their recommendations are important for Sean and I to know, so that we can, you know, plan in advance and either have a guest speaker or provide some data in those small group breakout sessions so that people are informed, because a lot of our work is based on the constituents that report to you all. And then there's also some assumptions that are being made. So we just want to make sure anytime that we can, that the committee has access to the data that is needed to back up their recommendations. And so that's our job, to be able to provide that to you as well.
I think the other piece of that, Brian, I think, is that we have access to more meetings. And so having presenters who could add information related to that data is really essential now too. So we have the ability to bring presenters in who could kind of talk to each of those pieces as needed. So that would really be a good thing to do if we need to. So, you know,
it's a great point.
needed.
1 second.
Yeah.
Someone's
Yeah, I mean, and I'm just sitting here thinking, say we have a presenter, then we have breakout groups, and if the presenter remains available to answer questions that come up during the breakout groups, that would be very helpful too.
Absolutely. And it could be a BSE or a CSDE consultant that does the presenting. It could be somebody outside of our department or organization. It's really in alignment and based on the needs of your priority areas. So just using as an example, least restrictive environment. You know, we have Dory Papa is our indicator manager for that particular topic. So she would have a wealth of information on initiatives that we're running, but then we could also bring in some outside consultants or, you know, whatever we need to do to make sure that your questions are answered real time to help inform those plans.
That's great.
That's great, because for me, what I would love to know is, like, when it comes to like staff teacher vacancies, what are you doing? What has been successful? What hasn't? Because I believe the legislators are going to want to know what is already being done, and then what are the steps we need to do. I think that would save us a lot of time if we knew already things that have been worked for you, things that haven't worked, things like that.
Yeah, we could present it as like a high-level summary of what's in place, similar to our SPP stakeholder process. I'm thinking, Sean, it's like, here's what we have in place. We could provide you more information or details on that. We, you know, make sure we don't overwhelm folks and have too much that needs to be, but just succinct, bulleted. Here are the strategies we've used. Do you see any glaring areas of need or, you know, questions that stem from that? So we could absolutely do that. We can invite our partners from the certification office to come in and present on those topics as well. The Office of Special Education Programs has released a public document on staffing issues and recruitment retention back on October 4th, from the Secretary Cardona through the new OSIP lead, who's Valerie Williams. And there are fact sheets and some nationwide data on vacancies. And for example, the average annual salaries of teachers in the different states and where Connecticut falls. As you can imagine, the Northeast states pay higher rates than in the South or Midwest. And New Jersey, interestingly, is the top average salary in the Northeast. But Connecticut's on the upper echelon. But even offering folks more money is not the complete answer. But in some states, the average salary for teachers is quite low, and that's just another area that's brought out in this type of report from the federal government. So not that we need a presentation on it, but it's just another resource that can inform the annual report.
Brian, I think that one of the things we could also do is possibly have some of that information readily available for our meeting. And I'm happy to try to locate that document from OSEP. If you want me to bring it to next week's meeting, if you want me to do that, I'm happy to do that.
Awesome.
That would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, I can send you the link. So does that sound like a plan as far as next steps, that we could clean up the priority areas? And then just, I'm thinking of the headings, like what we've done in the past, is just a little bit more broad, like least restrictive environment is a huge topic.
Yeah.
And then underneath that, just trying to bullet out the specific items related to LRE that have come up in our conversations. We can send that back all through the executive committee and then present it, one final time to the full SAC meeting when we meet on the 26th. Is the 26th the next virtual meeting, or
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
as far as the agenda, we could try to tie current information and resources to each of those 5 topics.
Mhm.
Like Sean, we were saying, the OSIP document, some of our state activities that are in place, that'll reduce the possibility of somebody recommending something that we would say, oh, we're already doing that. Here's
Mhm.
information on that. And the 26th is a virtual meeting, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a shorter time frame. I'm thinking we have yep. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking from my perspective, and I know we're all so busy, but if there are documents that are tied to the agenda, to have those ahead of time to be able to review them,
Yeah.
that would be great.
Okay. And then so we'll plan to have and we can structure this any way you think will be the most efficient, Susan, but we can start off with just orienting everyone to the priority areas.
Yeah.
And then the resources, we can, again, if you haven't had time to review
Mhm.
prior to, here's a quick summary of each of the resources that we're starting with. As you go into your breakout groups, identify, start to craft some recommendations based on your constituency groups, areas of concern, identify any additional data that you need and or presenters for future meetings, and then come back together as a full group and share that back out.
Okay. So sometimes for some of the breakout groups, breakout groups, will they be recorded? Because I feel like I miss information from other groups.
We don't record the breakout
Okay.
groups. Yeah, the live stream sort of pauses at that point, and I don't think there's an ability to record those. But I mean, that's part of the pros and cons of doing it as a large group versus working in smaller groups.
Right. Maybe Jen could throw up a Padlet. I'm here. I'm volunteering her while she's not here.
Yeah, or we can definitely set up something like that where you can actually view what's happening in the other breakout groups, just
Wow.
not being able to see it, not being able to hear
Okay.
it live, All right, so we have priority, review, resources, Padlet for breakout, and then we can record that.
Mm-hmm.
Share back out as a large group. Okay.
Great.
Other anything else on priorities or annual report, Susan? I know that you had done some work on the annual report as well, starting to kind of look at and organize that. We have an old action plan template that we've used last year that we can kind of bring back and start to write specific names and timelines into that so that we're prepared for the January submission. And I know we always aim to have it done even earlier than that.
Mm-hmm.
So
And would Tammy, would you have what you've already dumped into it from prior to, from January to July, or?
I don't think we have a shell started.
Okay.
We could easily do that. I think the decision needed to be made how we were going to do it. If we were going to use Microsoft Word or a Google Doc, which I know is easier for some people in the public, but harder for SDE. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to cut and paste some stuff in there and come up with a shell that we can kind of assign to people. I think we just need to come up with a decision how to do it.
Okay.
So in terms of sharing the document, I don't know what all of you think about this. I just know in the membership committee, Brian, I don't know if Jolie had a chance to talk to you about it yet, but we talked about setting up a small subgroup in Teams. So the document can be shared out via email with everyone to edit, but it sort of has a resting place in this Teams group. So that way, if anyone has trouble accessing Google Docs or another source, I think this mode.
The question is, not everybody has a subscription to Microsoft Office.
Oh.
And I would be one of those people.
Wow. Okay. All right. Got it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can, my husband has one on his computer. I could just work then. Would I be the only person who doesn't have that?
Well, I think there's a way, actually, I know there's a way to, and not necessarily creating a team space for us all, but to send a link where you would have permission based on your email to go into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe it could be a pared down version of that concept that the membership committee talked about, and that we commit to using the Microsoft platform. That's going to help Jolie, Sean, and I, and then other of the organizations that we're working with. I believe Nachi also, and so that way we can share specific links out to those either without Teams or without a Microsoft account. You'll still be able to edit real time and see that it'll just be easier for version control of the document, I think. So we can go ahead and set that up and send and just list the people that will have access to the document as a starting point and then start filling it in. And then Tammy and Susan, just let us know if you're having issues. Sometimes it's a little tricky for that initial access. Sometimes we have to click on a permission or something if you're not able to access it easily the first time around.
Okay, just let us know when you get it set up. And
okay, so that's a to-do on our end. Great. I know we're at 1, but we did start a little bit late. Catherine, you had some updates for as far as membership matters.
I'll do this, really quick. So
okay.
Rick Rauchi reached out to me. He thinks he has a student who's going to apply to be a student representative. I haven't received the application yet, but he just contacted me about a week ago, and I told him I'm super excited. The member committee
awesome.
talked. Yeah, that would be great. We'd have 2 then. And then in the membership committee, we talked about drafting a recruitment flyer for our legislative branch, because we don't have any representatives right now. So that's where the discussion came up about having a document that we can all share and edit together. I have the Youth Advisory Board, Jake sent me a recruitment flyer over the summer. We're going to use that as a template. And someone else on the committee, Brian Smith, had another document. So we've got a couple documents we want to look at as templates. And, we also said that we'd like the executive committee to have access to this document. Of course, we would want all of you to look at this and before it's going to be sent out and considered a final draft. But that's what we have going on right now. We didn't have any new applications to review, but I'm just feeling really optimistic about this potential student.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's great.
That's really great, Catherine. And also in regards to the other committees, do we have any more? I'm waiting on from Jolie a list of the names and the emails of people that were interested from the Padlet, I think.
Yeah, we can definitely get that to you. I'll double check with Jolie. Sean, I don't know if you know offhand of interest in that area now. Yeah, we can get those names to you. And then unlike a membership activity, Susan, you have the authority to appoint those individuals once you have the names.
Great.
So it doesn't require a vote or anything. We just have to let those individuals know that they've been approved to join those committees for the next year moving forward.
Okay, great. And do they, when they have their meeting, do they vote within themselves for their chair?
You appoint chair,
Okay.
which is usually more of a volunteer.
Got it.
A volunteer aspect, but I think Jeff indicated that he would like to remain chair of the legislative committee. And so that's the hardest. I mean, not the hardest, but Jeff has experience there. That's, I think, to train somebody new at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So close to the legislative session would be tricky.
Great. Do you have a template for what you would like to say in a letter when say you're on the committee or?
Yeah, I don't know that we have sent out formal letters on that. I think
Okay.
it's more of just
Just an email.
noted in the minutes of the full council of, here's our appointed committees for this year. And then
Okay.
we usually leave the invitation open if folks, change their mind or are interested later on. It's something we can do sort of on the back end of making sure that they participate. The tricky part is, Susan, which we still have to work on, are the governor letters. They're still the governor appointee for our parent members. We're still waiting on getting an update for them. So in those circumstances, they attend the committee meetings, but they're not able to, formally vote. So.
Okay, attend. Okay.
Yep.
I heard Missy finally got hers.
Oh, she did.
Yeah, I
And
think she
I
said
got
she got
mine.
her. You got your Susan?
Hmm?
Wow,
Great.
congratulations.
We're making progress.
Yeah.
That's
Great.
good.
Because I would love to at least maybe get that out to people before our meeting on Wednesday, so people kind of already know that they're on a committee. Yeah. How do so do you want me to send Jolie an email or?
No need. We'll, Sean and I will circle back.
Okay, great.
And it looks like we're looking to get out the current committee makeup to you for just to kind of formalize.
There's a Padlet, and I just was wondering.
And we can do that as an agenda item, Susan, on the 26th.
Okay, that's wonderful.
And we'll send it out in advance as kind of a last call, just in case, there's still opportunities to contribute to the committees. Here's kind of the current names that we have.
Okay.
And the second piece are identifying resources for each of the priority areas as an initial review for this Wednesday. And the student piece, Catherine, do you need anything from us on that student, or are you going to be working with Rick?
I'll work with Rick. I'll follow up with him.
Right.
He'll get a reminder email from me tomorrow and say, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, because it would be wonderful. And it would be wonderful if these committees could meet a couple of times before we finalize the annual report, so we could get.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I really would like to have some nice headway on this recruitment flyer. Because it's always nice to have that kind of progress mentioned in the report, and it's just an incentive for me to get it done.
Okay.
Right.
That's wonderful, because I do, and I'm hoping that still on the list is for us to do a legislative breakfast. I met Christine Cohen. I ran into her the other day at something, and she didn't really know much about SAC, and she said you should do she was saying, we have things where you have breakfast and you meet everybody and you can tell them what you do. And I was like, I know, we're trying. So I didn't know where Jolie was on that. Because
Okay.
I know that's, reserving a space at the LOB is very challenging, right?
Yeah, no,
To
but
get a
we
spot.
can, yeah. If we can pair that with our in-person meeting there, that would be perfect.
Yeah, and do you have, do they, pre-COVID, they would do different days at the Capitol, like Arts Day? Is there a special education day?
That's a great question. I
Where
know
they-
there,
Yeah.
I know there are days that are driven by certain entities and organizations at the
Mhm.
Capitol that I've attended in the past, but I don't know if there's specifically a special education day that's a general topic for the
wonder-
legislators.
I wonder if there's a disability rights CT day or something. I could ask
No.
Tom.
Yeah, I don't know for
I
sure.
don't know if they're even doing that because they used to just put the tables up in the corridor between the two buildings.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we
I have
can get
another
the scoop
meeting.
on.
I
Go
have
ahead,
to
Tom.
run. The restraint and seclusion meeting started
Okay.
at 1, so I have to
Okay,
run.
sorry,
It was
thanks.
so nice seeing all of you.
Thank you,
Good seeing you,
Sean.
Sean.
Thank you.
I'll
Thanks,
see you
Sean.
next week, and we'll connect, Brian, you and I.
Okay, perfect.
I have another commitment too. I have to run. Thank you all.
Okay, great. All right. Bye, Tammy.
And I have till 1:15, surprisingly enough.
That's amazing, Catherine. You never have that much time. Yeah, and I'm going to talk to Jen, and I are going to go over, I think on Monday, we're going to meet and kind of give her a little update of what we did today.
Perfect.
All right.
All right.
All right. Do we want
I
to
think we got
close
a
the?
lot done in a short time. That's awesome.
Definitely. That was impressive. Thank you both. All of you. I know a couple people dropped off, but as far as for the minutes, we can close the meeting, Susan, at
what time is
1:09.
it?
What do we got?
1:09?
1:09.
Very good. And then we have our homework to do in between, and just wanted to thank you both for all that you're doing behind the scenes every day on these Catherine, for the membership and everything. And then
Thank you.
yeah, that's a lot of work. And Susan, in between meetings, there's more work than the meeting itself. So appreciate all of your organization.
And Brian, you're the glue that holds